This is part 2 of Gurpreet and Nav's story. Gurpreet and Nav, I'm really grateful to have you here again on the Relationship Hub. You are the first couple to be part of a 2-part series. So congratulations on that accolade.
You've made history.
You have indeed. So we're going to dive straight into the early years of married life. It began in your family home, Gurpreet, didn't it, when you were first together? How were those first few months of marriage for you both?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was very exciting. We were finding out all this stuff about each other, and we were telling each other about ourselves as well. And we couldn't wait for the weekend all the time, because we didn't even want to go to work. We just wanted to spend time together all the time. It was like that. It was very exciting and really enjoyable.
They call it the honeymoon period, don't they?
Yeah, period of time. Yeah, it was amazing.
And Nav, you said, I think on the first video, you spoke about the fact that you were suddenly worrying, will Gurpreet be this kind of touchy-feely person that you are? How will you connect? And your sister was saying to you, hey, well, it'll be what it'll be, but it's right. It's the right thing. You're the right person. So how was it for you? Did Gurpreet fulfill kind of some of those aspirations, if you like?
Absolutely. He was everything that I wanted in a partner. And it was the most amazing experience to come together and to really experience each other on another level. Together, everything Gurpreet has described was exactly what it was like for us as a couple. But the environment in which we lived in was not that positive, and that had a big impact on our the early months of our marriage.
And we didn't know about this stuff was going on outside of our little bubble as well. We were in our little bubble. This stuff was going on outside around, and that's, with us living, with my parents and my sister, and, it was, the dynamics weren't right. But we were trying, our best from the beginning, the outset. So we're staying with our parents, we're going to take care of them, we're going to serve them like our culture and our faith expects us to do, and everything like that. We have a responsibility there, but sometimes it just doesn't work out like that.
Yeah. So it felt sort of somewhat pressurized, would you say, for you, Nav, being in that environment, although you were absolutely loving time with Gurpreet?
Yeah, I think that honestly, if I was there now, I probably would say it was this, they were like this, they didn't like me because of this. But ultimately, I don't know what the reason was, why I was treated that way, why I was never accepted. I don't know. But it's not an uncommon story either within our culture. Mm-hmm. We do traditionally live with our in-laws. And I do think I have 2 daughters and I have 2 sons. I do not expect my son's daughters to live with me. I do not expect my daughters to live with their in-laws. I expect them to serve them and look after them as we would our elders. But for me now, when I look back, I think a lot of what was going on was other people's insecurities and other people's traumas. Now, I found out later on that when my mother-in-law got married, she was very, very harshly treated by her in-laws. So I think that there's a lesson to be learned there, because I'm thinking, because I know now myself that when I have a daughter-in-law, I'm going to be as loving as I can, because I want to break the cycle of what I've experienced. Yeah. But for the past generations, they've not been able to break that trauma. They just want to relive it and give that someone else that. And that's what happened to me. And it was really, really challenging. I remember being pregnant. And I was vomiting in the middle of the night in the bathroom, and my sister-in-law was screaming at me, telling me I was keeping her awake, complaining to my mother-in-law the next day. And it was not a very nice environment to live in. My husband was, Gurpreet was really feeling like he was in the middle, because I actually wasn't saying really that much to him, but he knew that I was struggling and I was suffering. Whereas my sister-in-laws, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law, every minute when I wasn't there, they would be complaining to him about me.
Yeah.
So he felt like he was like really in the middle, but I think I don't know what you must have been thinking, but we're having a great time together and we're having and then someone else is coming to you and telling you all these bad things about me. I don't know.
And that's the thing as well. Just generally, it's like, people, when you get married, you're going to change, right?
Yeah.
And be around someone, you're going to be, but there's that thing, well, you're different now. You weren't like you was before. And, it's hard to, and you're like being the youngest as well. It's hard to kind of like, speak up and be, whatever, respectfully as well, because we're conscious of that fact as well. And, we're having this great time. We're up here. The next minute we're down here because someone said something or whatever. And then, back up here again. And it was very much like that, up and down for those months. But for me, the main thing is we were happy together. And, we couldn't really control what was going on outside of that. But, as you mentioned, being pregnant, that really changed everything. So we found 6 months into us being married that we were expecting, and that was massive for us. That really changed everything. And that changed everything for me to realize, well, I've just been, learning how to be a husband. Now I need to learn how to be a father. But the responsibility there for you as well, straight away, you knew that, can't raise a child in this environment. We need to do something. And because I think, everything had happened so fast in the sense of, getting initiated and then, marriage 3 months after that, there wasn't really a lot of time for us to kind of decide what we wanted to do anyway. Like, in terms of where we wanted to live and everything, it was just, we wouldn't have really had the time to do that anyway. So now we were kind of doing it back to front, where we realized that, we're going to have a baby in 9 months' time. We need to do something. Either we try to, reconcile everything in the house, everyone's differences, and we make it work here, or we need to move out ultimately.
Yeah. And did you find as well, in terms of obviously those kind of decisions, and like you said, Gurpreet, you perhaps felt very much in the middle, did it put a strain on the relationship between you two?
Yeah. I felt really alone, and I felt that even though, he was doing his best to manage things and keep everybody happy, I felt like he should have been sticking up for me more. I felt like he could have been a bit more vocal. And there was one night where I was 2 months pregnant, and I went to the Gurdwara, and one of my mother-in-law's friends came up to me and she said, "Oh, you're pregnant?" And I had been very explicit to say, I don't want anyone to know until I've had a scan, because I had watched my mum have 3 miscarriages. I knew that my mother-in-law had suffered baby loss as well after birth, and so I really wanted to be really sure and really secure in myself. So for her to come and say that, I was quite like taken aback, because there were people really close to me. My friends didn't even know. Some of my family members didn't even know. So when we came, and then he took that quite badly, and so he was like, "I'm going to speak to mum and dad about this. This is unacceptable." So if you think about all the things that we must have let go in all of this time, this was something we could let go. And I think this is where you watch the Serengeti, and you see, like, when the lion sees that the little cub is getting hurt or something, and then I don't know, maybe it was a protective thing over the baby or something, but he just became someone else. And he came home and he said, "Look, we've just been to the Gurdwara. This is what so-and-so said. Would like to know if you've told them." And my mother-in-law, obviously there was quite a big argument that happened, but I'm more argumentative than he is. He's just like so calm. So they weren't really getting anything out of him in terms of an argument, but he was the most vocal I've ever seen him be. And it was at that point, it was, everything happens for a reason, right? That kind of coming to a head in that moment was a wake-up call for him to say, we cannot live here, we cannot do this, we need to be in our own space. And literally that's what we did. The next day we started looking into where can we live, where can we go, what options do we have financially, and there weren't many financially, because we just got married and we were blowing all of our money on going on holidays, because we were just trying to get out of the house all the time, and not around everybody. So it was a real challenge, but we kept on because of our discipline in terms of, meditation together, prayer together, and the life that we were leading together outside of everybody else, that just kept on bringing us back close together. Even though, I would say things to him or he would say things to me, or I didn't feel that he was doing what I needed him to do for me. But we just kept on coming back together. So yes, it did cause turmoil within us, but at the same time, we always knew that we were right for each other. And one thing he always used to say is, our relationship has not come out of nowhere. It's come out of something higher than us. So we can never question whether we've made the right decision or not. And I think that was always something he used to say to me to remind me not to forget that. And it was powerful.
But I think what you mentioned there is what we mentioned before about the support structure that we had outside of our family was very strong.
Yes,
from people that we respected spiritually as well. And I began to lean on that a little bit with a few individuals and get advice from them, because I was newly married and I didn't and like I said, I was a boy, become a husband, about to become a father very quickly. So I was getting advice, and I was getting told things, very great pieces of advice, like how your wife should be treated and how you should respond to that. And that was helping me, because it was like, yes, you should respect your parents, you should try to serve them if they allow you to, but also your wife shouldn't be treated like a doormat, basically. You need to stand up for your wife as well. And that was the side of me that was changing, because I didn't know how to balance that, like I said, being torn between my mom and everything else, and one needing to be
he was
respectful,
a mummy's boy, by the way,
needing to be respectful there.
You didn't notice.
And everything, and then have responsibility on this side now, and I was torn internally of what to do, and that brought about silence and inactivity and things like that, because you're just not sure what to do. You're being dragged this way and that way, and you are in the middle no matter what anybody says. You are split in the middle, and it is difficult.
I think it's really good. A few things that you've said there that have really stood out for me, that again, that application for all couples is, one is, ultimately the commitment you two had to this marriage. And so often I hear people talking about the commitment of marriage. And I know from data and research that's been done that there is, that marriage has got that kind of underlying commitment that enables it to succeed in situations where others might not. So it's not, we know not every marriage works and lasts in this country and in other countries, but actually it gives that extra level of commitment, because you're saying to each other, yes, we're going to do this life together. And that kind of persuades you and pushes you forward to say, we're not going to let what we have go. And the other thing as well that has stood out for me is actually prioritising your relationships. So for you, Gurpreet, it is hard, isn't it, when family are kind of, there's a tug and war going on. But actually when you become a family unit, when you become two people as one in marriage, that actually it is important that we prioritise that relationship. And that's not then that you neglect or you're disrespectful or you're disparaging towards those around you, but that is the first priority. And I really endorse that as well, from my own experience, that, for my husband and I, we are the most important person to one another, and therefore from that we can be good daughter and son-in-laws, or daughters and sons, or parents, or whatever, because of the solidity of the relationship that's there. And the other thing I'm going to pick up on, because I do, when I'm doing these interviews, I really kind of want to make sure people listening kind of pick out some of the things that are being said, and the fact that, Gurpreet, you sought support and help outside of that family unit. And I think so often, which is why I do the Relationship Hub, that people feel as though what's going on in the relationship, when his struggles are there, when there are difficulties, that we should somehow magically make it all okay all by ourselves. And why should we not lean on the wisdom and support and help of trusted friends? And it's not just blabbering to people about, oh, this is going on. It's actually seeking real wisdom and support and saying, do you know what, this is hard, and that's quite vulnerable. I'm finding this hard. I need some help. What do you think? So I just wanted to kind of highlight those things, because I think that's such a significant part of what you've described, and I don't want to skip over that. So thank you for that, sharing that part of those early years. So you moved out of your home, your family home, and you start family life together in your own home. You haven't got those pressures there. So in many respects, you could say at this point, everything has really fallen into place for you, okay? You've both been initiated into your faith, so you're at that same journey, as if you like. You're married and you feel so good about that, you're able to thrive. But of course, there's more to your story, and we're going to fast forward 5 years. Takes us to 2013, and your marriage was struggling at this point. And actually, for those who've heard the first video and heard you speaking so far, will be surprised to hear that you're at the point where you thought you might even split up. Tell us about that period of your life.
I feel that for me, it was going to come at some point where, like I said, we'd met, we'd got reinitiated, we'd got married, we'd moved out, we'd had a child, and like I said, the boy had become the husband, that become the father very, very quickly. And all of that stuff that we just hadn't processed any of it, and for me, I felt that at some point it was going to catch me, and it was going to catch up with me, that this had happened so quickly, and literally, that's what happened for me. I can talk about my own routine, and things not being right with that myself, and to the point that we did decide that we needed to move out of the house that we were living in, and for me and us, again, things happened really fast, where we decided to move out, and we were exhausted by that fact, that we had to do our day job and pack everything up at night, and do everything again, and and for me, where it come to a head was that we actually moved out of the house that we were selling before our new house was available. So we then actually went and lived with my in-laws for a few months. Mm-hmm. And I love my in-laws and didn't see it coming at all. But the fact that we moved out from our house, where I had a routine, and we went to live in a room in their house, was really where it tipped over the edge for me, where I didn't have no routine, and I felt like I lost who I was. I felt like I lost some purpose there. And I said, coupled with the fact that my personal routine wasn't great, in terms of my faith as well. We were doing a lot. We were still going to a lot of places, and there was a lot of motivation, inspiration, but my own Monday to Friday had cut down a bit, let's say. So I was kind of getting boosted up by other people, and learning still, about things. But generally my routine, what I was doing myself, my own relationship with my faith, my own relationship with my guru, was not where it was at from before. And that really had a knock-on effect on me, to the point, I don't know if you want to share anything now.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, so we, all of a sudden, I was running a house. We were both having to manage that. We were paying, a mortgage. Things changed instantly overnight, where we weren't literally paying for anything. We had so much disposable income. I was earning, I was working in the film industry, and I was earning a huge amount of money. And, you were a consultant then, and, we were doing really, really well. And we had all this disposable income. And then all of a sudden it was like, we had like hardly anything left at the end of the month, because we went from overnight, I remember the 1st of December, we literally had to start paying mortgage. We had to start paying for gas bills and all these kinds of things that everybody pays every day. But for us, it was a massive thing and we had no money left over for, leisure. I was pregnant, and then the baby came, and I was struggling to wake up in the morning and meditate and keep that routine, which meant that he didn't have me to do that with him, so he wasn't keeping up. So that kind of breaking that routine, and that was really kind of making us have a big struggle. It was a big tug of war really between, and I didn't really see it coming, because I was so busy, like being a mum and being on maternity leave, and and then going back to work and then managing that, and I didn't really see the kind of impact it was having on us, the fact that we weren't keeping that routine, which is so important to the Sikh way of life, because that is your foundation. And over time we just became really quite disconnected. Because of that. So if you think about it, like from part one, we're talking about how we've come together. We've come together through the faith of God and the love of God and the wanting to get that connection. And then all of a sudden we're hardly doing anything together at that level. and we're living kind of separate lives, although we still loved each other and we still were together and we're eating together. Every day was the same, but it wasn't. And it was becoming more worldly in that way. And so then we decided we needed a bigger house, and the opportunity again came in our laps overnight, and we were like, we have to move out. We've got tenants to come in to this place, so we could be renting this and getting that income coming in, and then we're going to buy this new place, which where we are now. And we literally had to pack all of our stuff, put it into storage. We had a new little baby. We were going to live with my mum's, and my mum's got a massive house. She's got one of those kind of Victorian townhouses. And there, my sister, we had so much space there, but it felt like we had no space because it wasn't our space. So that had a massive mental impact on us, him especially. At the same time, I had created I was co-founder of a organization called Kaur's Corner, which was a woman's space within the Sikh community, where they could come together and they could basically connect with their faith. And I was leading that. I was like the kind of person at the front doing all the talks, the Q&As. I was leading all of that. And I was doing it with another person, but they were more in the background because they didn't have the confidence to come forward. And we were traveling up and down the country, even going to Europe. Every weekend we were doing something. It started to have a massive impact on me because people were telling me all their problems. They were telling me all their struggles. That was making me sick because I was harboring that energy from them. And then I would come home, and when it's time for me to be at home with my family, I would just be sick in bed.
And you're carrying that burden of all of these other people's issues and problems, and actually not facing up to what's going on in your own home and addressing what's going on there.
That is exactly what happened. And so one day we were at my mum and dad's, and I woke up in the middle of the night. He wasn't in the bed. I came downstairs, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he just said, "I want a divorce." Literally, that's out of nowhere. Even though when I reflect now, I kind of feel like I knew something was coming. I obviously didn't know it was that. But, and that's what it was. And it was, and we sat there all night talking.
I don't even remember saying that to you.
To just understand what was going on, what had happened. And then it was only later on that we kind of, weeks later, we kind of realized that this has got something to do with your mental health. And
just if I could just go back just slightly before we move on to that point, just that whole sense of this period of time, and actually can be really tough. I mean, like you say, you've got the honeymoon period of when you're first married and it's all exciting, and then life and work and having children can put a big strain on young couples who haven't had the experience of lots of life together and are learning to navigate all of these things. And yes, your faith is there, but that kind of being intentional with one another and investing time with each other. And if you're doing these different conferences and work, and if you're not physically spending enough time being intentional with one another, then something that has been talked about several times on various interviews I've done, where this drifting happens, whereas life as two people together should always be kind of pointing towards one another, going towards one another. And you were kind of doing these busy lives, having meals together, but going along and then actually beginning to drift because you weren't being intentional. And I guess obviously everything came to a head. But again, I wanted to just draw that out because I think it's so easy for people to just think, oh, life's busy and I'm looking after the children, and they don't see it coming always. They don't see the danger signs. And it's like, we need to be aware of those things, and obviously you had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah, I think in psychology they call it living on autopilot, isn't it? And for a long time we were just in autopilot. We were just going with the flow, and there was no consciousness to what was happening. And that's why now when we look back, we're able to see, oh my God, there was a red flag there was a red flag there. And it's, we could talk about later, what we're doing now to ensure that we don't go down those routes again. But it is really important to just for those watching to know that don't live your life on autopilot. Just be present, in everything.
I think that like you said, it was kind of like a bolt from the blue almost, because of the fact that we were ignoring those red flags. But as you was mentioning, for me, I felt alone a lot because, like I said, you were going up and down the country, and the weekends was a big part of our relationship and our marriage, because we'd always look forward to the weekends, and all of a sudden you wasn't there anymore. And I was with Mansima, our daughter, who's about 2 or 3 at the time, and I was leaning on my in-laws for a lot of support with her as well. And you know, I could see the physical toll it was taking on you. Like I said, you were like doing all this great stuff, and you were amazed by it, and you were coming home and telling me, but I was looking at the person who was throwing up everywhere, because you couldn't handle it, because it was such a big thing that you were doing. And you wouldn't listen to me either, because you were doing such a great service, and you could see all these people needed your support and everything like that. So that was quite difficult. But there's just a few things that really stick out in my mind, where, you know, there were points for me where I realized that, you know, hang on a minute, you know, this is not right what is happening. And this is what affected me as well, where I remember we went to Paris. You know, it was our 5th wedding anniversary. So Paris has always been a special place for us. And we went, and we were going for 2 or 3 nights, I think. And you was ill for most of the time. And I was just sitting there thinking, this is what our life is like now.
And I was thinking to myself, I've got such a high fever, but I'm still pushing myself to go out. And he's so ungrateful. He's not seeing what I'm going through. But for him, he's like, this is our anniversary, and you can't even be well for this. So that's how disconnected we were.
And one more point I remember very poignantly as well was, you know, like I said, there was a 1 month or 1.5 months, there was a 5-week period or something, where I counted it that maybe 4 out of those 5 weekends you was away, which is massive. And I remember definitely one time where it was Mother's Day, you was meant to be, you know, you were coming back like late in the night or something like that, I don't even know. And you know, Mansima, I had it so she stayed with my in-laws that night. She's come home, she's all happy, she's all, you know,
came home early.
She's come home early, it's a big surprise, I'm coming here to spend Mother's Day and this, that and the other. But I had no idea. I thought she's not going to be here. So Mansima was with my in-laws, and she's come back and she's like, where is she? And this, throwing, you know, all this about. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You weren't even going to be here. And I'm like, what's going on? And then for me, I felt like I'm getting attacked. And then, you know, this is what, and like you said, it's very easy to feel like this is what our life is like now. You know, this communication was, you know, just not there, which is the key.
We were so disconnected. And you can hear, even like when I'm listening to what you're saying and what I'm saying, it's what we described in what we were in, you know, episode 1 is night and day to what we're describing now. Literally, that's how far away we went from each other. And it happened, and it happens to everybody. But there is a way through it. But for us, mental health played a big part of it. And it was about navigating through that.
Yeah, and I think as well that you said communication, Gurpreet, and that's so crucial, and making assumptions as well, that you were making assumptions about one another and what they were thinking and feeling. And it's so easy to let those assumptions just play havoc with your own thoughts about what's really going on. And actually we need to articulate those with grace, with kind of patience if we can, in order to kind of get through those things. And as you say, we can all kind of be, vulnerable to those sorts of things. And I think as well, I'm just conscious that, like you've said, Nav, you're doing this great thing. And so often we can be thinking, well, I'm doing really good stuff here. I mean, I don't mean we all have to be working for charities or whatever, but it could be that you're just doing your job really well and you're bringing income in for the family so you can go on holiday, or you're giving time for this, that and the other, which is all good and valid, but not at the sacrifice of your own relationship, which is so central to how you function in all areas as well. And that really was the crux of what was going on for you, wasn't it, as a couple, that you were making all these sacrifices, but the biggest sacrifice was actually your own relationship, but you didn't realise it at that time. So you've talked about mental health being a part of this. So could you expand on that a little bit more, Gurpreet? Because I know I listened to your podcast and you talked about a particularly difficult time where you were sort of spiralling. You've got all these pressures of, what's happened to our marriage, what's happened to us. And you talked about something called a black dog. Can you explain some of this and how you were feeling at that time?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I only learned the term black dog way after I was feeling like that. But it's almost like there's a video it on YouTube, so you can Google it. I think it's something that Winston Churchill labeled depression as a black dog. So there's literally a physical black dog which is always inside you, which makes you feel like, exhausted, to the point that that you can't think straight, you can't sleep, you can't do anything, you lack emotion, everything is there with you wherever you go. Very hard to explain that, but this is what makes you feel like that. And it shows, the video shows like whatever the person does or whatever, wherever he goes or whoever he's with or whatever, that black dog is inside that person, to make you feel like that. And it's like you can't separate yourself from it. And like I said, for me, it came, I knew it was coming, right? Something, like I said to you, that how things had changed really quickly in life, and we were on autopilot, like you said, not mindful of anything, and that I started to feel like something had changed inside me. And this is where the main problems came for me, and the slippery slope down from that personally. I couldn't work it out what was going on inside me, but something had changed, and it was scary, because I couldn't tell her, I couldn't say anything to her about this. I couldn't talk to anybody about it because I didn't know what it was myself. But I knew how I felt, that I felt, totally alone in this, and I didn't feel right. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel grateful for anything, but I couldn't explain what was going on inside me. But it's like I was going to work, and I'd lost interest in everything. I wasn't even interested in us moving into a new house anymore. I'd lost interest in everything, and I felt like I was looking at my life from a different point of view, and just watching somebody else's life. It's like how I was looking at my life, and I could see that it's going out of control, and I felt scared that I was gonna lose everything. I felt like I would go to work. We're living with my in-laws. I'd go to work and everything, and I would feel like I felt like I was there but a part of nothing. And I said everything had changed, but the real memory that I have is that every day, I don't know how long it lasted, but every day I would come home from work and I would go into the toilet and I would cry, and I didn't know why I was crying. I just had some release of something, but that was the fear in me, because like I said, I could see me losing everything, because all of a sudden I didn't care about nothing. I didn't care about anything. I just lost interest and in everything, and I was scared that I was going to lose my daughter. That's why I was crying, because I was like, she's not going to have a father. She's going to be like, and like you said, everything is spiraling out of control in your head, that you just don't know what's going on. You don't know who to turn to. You don't know who to talk about, nothing. And it was just that big fear of everything. And like I said, I didn't know what was going on, but I knew something had changed inside.
And I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much, Gurpreet, for speaking and articulating this in the way you have, because I think we know that mental health is being talked about much more than it used to, but it still doesn't get the full understanding that it perhaps needs in all areas. And and Nav, I can see you're affected by just hearing that story again and hearing what Gurpreet's saying, and so just want to thank you at this point just for your vulnerability, because I think it's so important that things like depression and this, like that overwhelming sense of feeling trapped and that you don't know where to go and there's nothing you can do, that we do talk about these things, because it's so very important. And it's just as important, so often if you've got something wrong with you physically, people will go to the doctors and get it sorted out. But when it comes to mental health, there always seems to be this, I shouldn't talk about it, there's this shame in it, or whatever else it might be. And of course, it can be so crippling for the person, but also for the relationships that they're within, whether it's, husband and wife, whether it's in-laws, families, sisters, brothers, children, etc. And clearly what was going on for you had an effect on your marriage. And Nav, I just wondering whether, did you have any idea of just how deep a sort of depression that Gurpreet was in at that point? And how did you feel about it at that time? What was your response?
I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't even know that this had anything to do with mental health. I thought this was all about like him and I have done something wrong. He's done something wrong. I didn't think that it was something bigger than that. And it was when he said, I think I'm going to see a therapist at work, that I really was like, why are you going to see a therapist? I still couldn't connect the dots that this was something like some sort of mental health issue. Because what I was worried about was that, and it was, I mean, you've opened my eyes so much around kind of like the Christian community and, you know, their kind of, you know, the real thinking around marriage and the sanctity of it and the understanding of it. But at that time, all I saw was he's going to a white woman where they don't care if they get divorced or not. And he's going to go there and say, my wife's this, my wife's that. This is the problems I'm having. And she's going to turn around and say, you know what, to feel better, you need to get a divorce. And I was really worried that that's what she was saying. That's my biases, but also my lack of understanding as well. But not everybody has that thinking. But he did go to her, and I think you felt better temporarily, but ultimately she wasn't really able to serve you.
And the thing is as well, that wasn't even anything to do with her really, because I was looking for her to be like a magic wand and give me something and make me feel like I used to feel like, because that was the thing. That's the reason why I went there. And I didn't want to do anything. So I didn't want to work on myself either. I didn't see a problem with me. But just what you mentioned before, it really summed it up. I felt trapped to the point that it led me to question everything.
Yeah.
That's amazing that, you know, and we kind of saw something coming, but we didn't kind of do anything about it to catch it in its tracks. But, you know, this is the learning here, that this is why we're here sharing this with other people so they can. But yeah, for me, I didn't know the seriousness of it. I just thought that, you know, at the time, you know, I suffer from polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I thought, you know, I'm really struggling to lose weight because of that. I can't get pregnant because of that. And, you know, having the first baby was a fluke, you know, so quickly, because, you know, I'm meant to be infertile according to the doctors, Western medicine, but obviously God's got his own plans. And, you know, so it was like, I can't get pregnant. I'm struggling to, you know, look the way I used to look. And I was thinking, these are all the things that's causing this disconnect between us. I didn't look any further back in our history to think it could have been this, or this is an accumulation of lots of different things. This is stuff that this understanding has come through us working on ourselves as individuals, but also as a couple for years to come. And we've really been able to reflect. And I think that's why, sorry, I don't know why I'm getting upset, but I think that's why, sorry, I shouldn't apologize for crying.
No, not at all.
But I think that's why, you know, it's so important for us to have these discussions, because there are so many people that are struggling and they think that the answer is to just walk away. But actually, there's so much power in staying and working through it, because I've learned so much forget about my marriage. I've learned so much about myself as an individual and my connection with God and what my capabilities are. Because I always knew, even though we were going through this awful time, that we were going to be okay, because we had met through the power of God and our foundation was based on God. So I was like, there's no way this is happening for a reason. So even though it looked so bad from the outside, there was something inside me that knew we would be okay. And I would say that to him, and he would not really take on board what I was saying, but I would say, we're going to be okay. You can say whatever you want to me. You could be as rude as you like. You could be a completely different person, but we're going to be okay.
Do you know why? Because I couldn't feel anything at all. It's like I was void of emotion. I couldn't feel nothing. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to do anything. So it was closed off. That's what you were dealing with. Someone that was closed off from everything.
But I penetrated through love.
Yeah, you did.
So, I mean, it does sound, I mean, the story you're telling, it feels, you know, this feels desperate. And you know, I don't know where you mentioned divorce for the first time, Gurpreet, in the context of all that was going on. But we've already established, you know, your marriage is not looking good, other than the fact, Nav, that you're saying, it ain't over. I'm not giving up on this. This is staying. So what happened? How did things turn around? Because frankly, hearing this story now at this point, anybody who listens now thinking, well, what on earth did happen? How did things turn around for you both? Gurpreet, you're obviously in a much better place now, but your marriage is in a great place. So what was the thing that turned things around for you? How did it change?
I think, one, moving into the house, we did, so that finally got over the line. So we did move out of the room.
So out of the in-laws and then into your new home. Yeah.
I got a new job as well. And, we found out we were having another child. So these things, they did change things. But throughout that time, there was still ups and downs. There were still good days and bad days for me all along, as in, like, sometimes I would just be left to my own thoughts, and you could see that there was a problem with me, and you'd just be like, we're trying to do something to talk to me or whatever it was. But these things that come in threes, ultimately, it showed me some sort of hope that there could be some sort of happiness there for me with these things. But how things were, like you said, desperate. It was like hinging on these things. Like, I didn't like my job at the time, so getting a new job. What if I hadn't got that job? It was that desperate. I ended up getting it, and that gave me some positivity and some hope in my career to go to the next level. And then, when, for me, the big thing was finding out that we were going to have another baby, because for me, it was a second chance at everything. I could put everything to the side, and I had a second chance at everything, because I know that my daughter, she suffered during this time. She was only 4 years old, but she could pick up on her dad was not right. She could pick up on it. And I felt really guilty about that, to the point that I was like, we're going to get a second chance now. I'm going to get a second chance to be a dad again. So for me, that was the biggest point, where we found out we were, going to have another child.
But even before we got to even that stage of being intimate and being able to conceive another child, I mean, from my perspective, all I kept on thinking was environment. I need to take him away from the environment, everyday environment, and I need to show him how happy we have been in the past. I need to remind him of these things. So I was booking us to go to Belgium, to any kind of city breaks I could find on like lastminute.com. I just was doing it, and I remember we actually went for one weekend, we went to stay at Hampton Court Palace, because we always loved to go there. I've always been obsessed with the Tudor history. And so we stayed in like a hotel right opposite the palace, and literally we had such an amazing time. Like, myself and my daughter, we had a really good time, but in my head it was all calculated. Like, everywhere we went, everything we did, I was always thinking, this is all about him, and reminding him of what a happy family we can be, and we have been. And so I was doing that all the time, every day, and I was always thinking that. And I like to think that all of those things did accumulate to some sort of healing for him, to remind him. How and when, I don't know, but I do feel like all of these things, spent a hell of a lot of money doing it, but it's worth every penny, because for me, I just felt like I needed to just remind him of the positivity and the goodness, because he was just wallowing in this negativity. And so it was just, and then I remember one day, it was a beautiful day, it was the second day at Hampton Court, and we went to have something to eat, and we sat on a bench just in Henry VIII's gardens, and we were sitting there, and I said to my daughter, I said, should we take our shoes off and walk around the grass? And she said, okay, mummy, let's do it. So we started doing it, and he came over and he said, what are you doing? And I said, this is really grounding for you. So we're gonna ground ourselves. And he took his shoes off, and then he started doing it. And you've been doing it ever since, haven't you? But it had, I think, every effort that I have made, or you have made, it has all been a part of that healing process, I feel. Even though it may sound silly, or it may be silly, or it cost a lot of money, or whatever it may have been, or cost nothing, but it had some healing component to us. But one day my sister came over. We had moved into this house. I was sitting on the couch. My sister came over, and she had known what was going on. I had told her I really needed that support. She said, how are things going? And I said, things are going good. And she was like, I'll have a cup of tea. So, I didn't have any milk, or we were missing something. So he said, "Oh, I'll go and get it. I'll go to the shop." And when he went, before he had gone to the shop, he said to me, when you come back, I need to talk. When I come back, I need to talk to you. And I was really worried. What is he going to say? What's happened? What's changed? And so when he had gone, I said to my sister, this is what he said. And my sister said, okay, I'm going to go. Forget about the cup of tea. I'm just going to go. You guys can talk, because, you know, it might be something positive. She was so desperate as well for everything to be okay. And so she left. And then he literally came back 5 minutes later without, I don't even know, you didn't even come back with it, did you, or something? And then he was at the door, and I was like, my sister's gone. And he was like, okay. And then literally he came in and he said, and I said, what did you want to talk about? And he just said, I want to go back to an Amrit and Jar. Like, I want to go back to initiation ceremony, literally.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, like, for guidance, right? To get some sort of, and for me, I thought this was a really positive thing, because he had got to a point where he didn't want to go to any Sikh spaces. He didn't want to go to no meditations. He didn't want to go to any kind of congregational places. So for me, I thought this is a massive thing. So we just, I got the laptop out. I looked up when the next one was going to be, and it just happened to be, it was going to be in Lisbon. So we were like booking tickets. We booked like £600 tickets to like Lisbon. And we arranged for my daughter to be looked after, and we went there and we got guidance from them. And it was amazing, because I was going in there with the mindset that he's done everything wrong and you need to tell him off. And he went in with the mindset that I've been doing everything wrong. They're going to tell me off. But actually, what they did was they said, you're both not going to be blessed today. You have to come back in 6 months. And in that 6-month period, you have to do this, 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 this. And that plan they gave us saved our marriage. It completely saved our marriage. And it was a very hard plan, but it was driven by the fact that we needed to build our oneness again between us.
And be intentional with one another.
Absolutely. All about that. You know, the cause corner that I had been running, I went, I said, I'm not a part of this anymore. I'm very sorry. It wasn't received very well. But, you know, I knew that, okay, I can go out and help other people and help them and support them, or I can be at home, support myself, and then do maybe better work. You know, kind of thing. You know, they say, like, when you're on the plane, about putting your own oxygen mask on before you put the child's on. It was kind of a scenario for me, and it had a massive impact, because our weekends were just about us as a family and rebuilding ourselves. And it was really hard. It took a long time. And then, you know, we got pregnant, and we were like, this is a good sign. So when the 6 month had come to an end, and we went to the Amrit and Jar back to say, look, it's been 6 months. Can we be reinitiated? Can we please be forgiven for all the mistakes we've made and the things that we've said and we've done and everything? And my husband said, and they said, okay, you know, what have you been doing? We told them, and my husband said, oh, we're also pregnant, which obviously was a good sign. Yeah. So they said, okay, what we want you to do is we want you to come back with the baby. So carry on doing the work. So they felt like that was a sign too, right? That was like, we needed to do a bit more work. So they were like, come when the baby's born. So we carried on keeping with our routine and building ourselves up, and we did go back with the baby, and you know, it was an amazing experience. So
can I, if I can, just jump back into some stuff that was said earlier on? So you know, obviously there's this whole journey, and Gurpreet, you were sort of obviously at the point of saying, okay, I want to be reinitiated, and so there's something that's different that's happened. But just to be clear for people watching, you had some really difficult times to that point. And I know, for example, Nav, when we've talked before, you talked about the fact that you'd even got to the point where you were looking for somewhere else to live for you and your daughter. You were starting to think, maybe I need to do this. So despite that sense of, I really want to make this work, there was something in you thinking, okay, maybe I should, you know, I might have to give up here. How do you think that you know, how did you manage to go from that point, for both of you here, for you, Gurpreet, to say, I want to be reinitiated, which is actually about, I want to re-enter life, is what you're saying, isn't it? I'm going to re-enter my marriage. I want to re-enter being a dad. I want to re-enter my faith. I want to re-enter the work and world I'm in. How did you go from the point where Nav's talking about leaving with your daughter to you saying, I want to be reinitiated, you know, to change your thinking like that? How did that happen?
like I said before, there was one day I was feeling a little bit okay, the next day I wasn't. So it was literally like that, to that point. But what led me to that point was, like I said, we'd moved, so there was some good days there was some bad days. I'd got a new job, and that had given me a lot of hope at that point. So I was starting to see a little bit of positivity, and like you said, I was away from the environment that I was in before. I'd start to build a bit of routine again, and that was the key thing around it, which made me think that I need to reach out to the people that have always supported us, that I'd been staying away from all this time. Because as a man, I was very worried that I'd be judged, or the position that I was in, because it's very difficult in sort of religious, institutions, spiritual places, where a man is meant to be really strong and lead a leader. It's not, a man is not weak at all.
That's not just spiritual spaces, that's any spaces.
But what I was saying is that this is the spaces we were in at that time.
True.
So that's why I wanted to stay away from them, because I didn't want to be judged. Because I knew that if I said to someone, look, I'm feeling like this, they'll look at my routine, and yes, that's probably the reason why, but I was not in a place to hear that at all. It would have pushed me even further away, because like I said, I was devoured of emotion and feeling and connection and everything. But I reached out to the person who had helped us all along and said to him, look, I feel like coming here. And that's when he said, well, we're not even going to be here, we're going to be in Lisbon. That's how we ended up going to Lisbon, because it was just literally just happened like that, where I felt like, I need to get back here. And like I said, I didn't really know what was happening with me. It's very hard to answer what actually happened, but something did happen where it was like, well, things are starting to come together, and this is the next step, me trying to become like the old me almost automatically. And she was so shocked that I did that, where I reached out to our friend and said that. And it was just like a spur of the moment thing. I could pick up my phone and I'm going to message him and say, we're coming here this weekend. Like, I don't even know. It just. But
you did have some divine intervention. You had a dream. You had a dream about someone very, very spiritual came to you in a dream and just hugged you, and that had a massive impact, because we, within our faith, there's many stories about the power of dreams and how you can live some of your lives through dreams, or there's messages that come through in dreams. And so to have this person who's very, very spiritual, it had been known that this person had come to people's dreams when they're struggling, and so that had a massive impact, didn't it?
And that came later on as a knock-on effect of this. But I remember that I've actually felt better after that. When I had that dream, I felt better, because he never said anything to me. He never judged me, and he didn't need to say anything, and just hugged me in a dream. And I felt better when I woke up, because I told her, I was like, this is what happened. And like I said, I felt a little bit better, after that. And like I said, just starting to take steps without even knowing, one step in front of the other, is where, I started to move forward.
And I guess those intentional steps, whether it's to do with, the job situation and what have you, all of those things have contributed towards you and Nav then being able to come closer together and prioritising each other. Because again, I think when one person is going through mental health issues in a marriage, it can be so hard, because you described feeling isolated, Gurpreet, and then Nav, you must have felt isolated in your own way, because you weren't able to connect with Gurpreet and trying to navigate all of that. And how much, Gurpreet, would you say did that Nav's kind of devotion to your marriage helped restore your marriage, but also helped you find a better place mentally?
Massively. I know that there's times when she was trying and she just couldn't penetrate me, because I just, in that time, and I could admit it now, because this is 7-8 years ago now, I was very, very selfish. Anybody who has had some sort of addiction before, or some sort of issues around that, they realize that they can't see any gratefulness anywhere. They just become ungrateful. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see the fact that I had a daughter, a roof over my head, and all of these just blessings that we take for granted, food on the table, all of this stuff. I couldn't see anything. I was grateful for nothing. But when you get to the other side, you realize how selfish she was. You do realize that. That's a personal thing. I've spoken to people now that have had addictions and other things. They realize that at the time, nothing can penetrate them. It's like you're like a stone. That's how I looked at myself, like a stone. And to the point that's how I felt. But I say this now, like I know how difficult it was for her, that what she was going through and who she was living with, and what I would, because I know what I was like internally. So imagine how difficult it was for her. But that's what I always say to her, that like, I thank her so much for not giving up on me. She never gave up on me. And that's the key. She never gave up, even though there was times when she was banging her head against the brick wall. As in, like, she was trying to say, let's do this, let's do it. And I was just not giving her anything. I was giving her nothing, because I'd got to the point where I'd shut down, literally. So that's the key thing. She just never gave up. She showed that resilience. She had the belief. But the thing is, for her, she was not only doing it for her, she was doing it for our daughter as well. She had that in her, and that could have been different. But for me, that's the main thing. She just never gave up. And for me as well, like, I would never wish that on anybody, like what she was going through, what we were going through. I would never wish it on anybody. And I know how difficult it was for her, but that actually made me so much stronger in my life, and her as well. But I would never wish that on anybody. But the biggest thing for me, as you said before, when I realized we were having a baby, that was it for me. That was the massive change. That was one. That like wasn't one switch. Foot. That wasn't one foot in front of the other. I started jogging forward then. Like, to that point, it was just like full steam ahead now, and I'd forgotten everything. Like, I'd forgotten everything. Some of the stuff you're saying now, I can't even remember it because it's just gone. Like, it's one of those things. It's really hard. But that was it. We're moving forward now, and we're having another baby. And all of a sudden, the house is looking different now. The job situation, my work, everything is positive now. All of a sudden, it's like we've been given another chance, you know.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I mean, I guess a question I would like to ask is, there could be couples watching this now, married couples together in relationship, etc., but where one or other is going through like mental health problems, and it can be so debilitating personally for that person, but also for the relationship. So, what advice would you give to any couples who are going through the sorts of thing you went through? What are the things would you say, if you said 3 things that would somehow perhaps help them to turn the corner, to suddenly start running forward again instead of feeling like you're shrinking and what have you? What would you say?
I think back then, I said 2013, things were a little bit different in the mental health sphere generally. We didn't know what to do, who to turn to or anything. I didn't know what I had, right? That's one thing. You need to try to, find out what it is that what's triggering you, why are you feeling this way? What's making you feel like this? Like you thought I had insomnia because I couldn't sleep at night. I thought I had depression, all of these things. Only later on now do I realize I had low mood for a couple of months, but that spiraled out of control. I was emotionally drained through that time. I didn't have depression. Right. I didn't have, but I thought, that's because we didn't find out about anything. So you need to, try to actually, like I said, find out what are you thinking, what are you feeling, and look into what it is that I said is triggering you. Why are you feeling like this? What's causing it?
But sometimes when you're in that situation, you don't want to do that work. So how would somebody get to, or a partner help somebody get 100%, that understanding?
100%. And this is why, you need to, the other person, like the role that you played is huge, right? Because you are literally, depending on the person who's suffering, you are working for the both of us. So you have to, swallow your own ego. Yeah, you have to become humble. Yeah, you have to let the person know that you are there for them regardless, just unconditionally. Yeah,
that's so important. And that was actually one of the things I was going to say to the partners out there who are supporting someone with mental health. You said so many things to me that were like just full-on rejections to every day telling me that you didn't want to have anything to do with me, but I just had to. And I even now just don't think about it as being you were somebody else. It was somebody else who said it. But when we start to, as partners who are supporting somebody, start to think to ourselves, well, they said that to me, so I'm not going to help them. Or no, that's what he said to me. When we start to hold on to those things, there's no way we're going to be able to help that other person, because we're looking at that person and thinking they're saying it. But what I was doing was I was looking at you and you were saying these things to me, and I was thinking, that's not him saying it. That's not him. He's not himself right now. And that really helped me to be able to be completely unconditional. Otherwise, it was all conditional. It was all about, he's done this to me, so I can't help him now. That's really, really important for those supporting someone.
And don't label someone else and say, well, so and so is like this. You've got what they've got, or you've got this condition, you've got that condition, to the point that you are pushing someone again further away. Don't do that. But the main thing is that, like I said, want to put across is that make the other person feel like that. Don't rush them to the point that you make that space available for them, that when they're ready to talk about whatever it is that they need to talk about, that you are there for them regardless. Not that, we've got this time frame, this needs to be done now, we need to speak about this now, or this is happening, and because it's the last thing that person wants and is feeling. You push them more away. Because the other thing is as well, like, I wasn't myself, but I couldn't work out what was going on. So I was confused, I was lost in my own self and everything. So I'm not rational at all. So how can you expect that person to just give you what you want to hear? And you've got to take things really slowly. And this is where external people can really help you to say, well, why don't you do this? And you can do something unknowingly because you're processing everything, saying, well, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, like that. But someone else can just say it like, very organically. So what, very just naturally. So, well, why don't you do that today? And you think, well, why don't I, just something that will, something for me was putting the bins out, routine. I've got to do this every week, like something like, that. And those kind of things, doing the hoover in the house and doing the ironing, or what I was doing before. When I stopped doing all that, it's the routine gone. You don't know. Sometimes when you do things in your life, you don't see a purpose for them. You don't see a reason for them. But all of a sudden, when you stop doing them, then you realize how far you've fallen away.
Yeah. So small little choices helped, as you say, by the people around you. So Nav encouraging you to take those small choices to sort of step out of where you're at. And obviously it is a long journey. It can be a long journey. But it's as you say, it does come down to, for you personally, as you've described, you just being willing to make those small choices along the way.
Absolutely. And I think, just quickly going back to the point for other people who are listening to this, where you said, whether you're not only supporting a partner, it might be another family member, it might be even a friend, to the point that you need to learn about what they're potentially going through when they do tell you, I'm feeling like this. Don't try to say, well, no, you're not feeling like that, you can't be feeling like that. Find out why they're feeling like that, learn about these conditions. I said, be there for them whenever it is, not on your terms, on their terms. Have that door open for them. Encourage professional help. Encourage it. Don't force it on them to say that they have to go to do this and then they'll become like this. But encourage it. Use it as something that's there for them. And, it's worth a try. Something like that, that kind of relaxed approach. And like I said, main thing is the small goals, that you set. But the other main thing is you must know the warning signs, for somebody. When they become a risk to themselves or other people, you must know at that point, I need to do something more serious, maybe. as well. You need to be aware of what those things are. So that's just a bit of a recap there for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you so much. And actually that kind of takes into my sort of almost at the very end of the questions I wanted to ask, because you're speaking there and giving some really good advice, Gurpreet, and of course so much of what you've been through in terms of dealing with mental health as a couple, near marriage breakdown, and even, you know, learning to parent together, all those sorts of things. All of those things have contributed to what you are doing now, Gurpreet, with your job with Mind, but also your presence on social media, both of you. So tell me a bit about how those things came about. And also the last thing would be how people can find out about those things, but mention that at the end. But how did you end up working for Mind, and how did you guys end up having this social media presence? And you've got a big following, haven't you? I know on both of you on social media.
I think I know for me when it happened is because, you know, Gurleen, our second child, was born, and I really became a hands-on father. I'd learned things first time round, which I didn't give myself credit for. But this time I said, I've got a second chance. I was putting myself out there, and, you know, people could see me being like that hands-on father. And I was always like, I can do everything for my child. Yeah, that was my mindset. People were beginning to see that, and they were beginning to talk to me about it. And all of a sudden I was looking at other fathers out there doing similar jobs to me. And I was like, wow, we are really, you know, at the forefront of our children's life. So this was what it was about. This is where Sikh Dad come along from, where literally I was thinking to myself, you know, who am I? And this is exactly who I am. I'm trying to be a Sikh every day. And I'm trying to be a dad. And it was about demonstrating that I've got two daughters. Yeah. And, you know, I'm okay with having two daughters. And, you know, this is just kind of documenting my lifestyle journey and experiences. And it all literally, this is no joke, it all came from that. And this is where I started to look at other people and see really difficult things on social media about families, men in particular, struggling with their own mental health. Where they were, you know, putting things out there like, you know, I'm taking antidepressants, I have anxiety, I feel like this. And all of a sudden I realized it was a bigger problem. Yeah. And I was like, this is going on in other people's families. I wasn't really looking at too much at what had just happened with me because it was kind of very fresh at the time. Then I started to look at all these things, and then, you know, to the point that, you know, I was working in the city. I was working in a, you know, it's kind of dog eat dog sort of world, you know, where it's very built on, you know, promotions, bonuses, overtimes, and all this stuff, climbing the career ladder, to the point that I was looking at that and I was like, do I want to spend the rest of my life doing this? Because I was looking at all this other stuff and I was like, I want to make a difference here. I want to do something that means something. And I don't want my children just looking at me thinking that, you know, I'm doing a job to pay bills or whatever it is to, you know, further my status or whatever it is. I want them to see that what my dad does, he enjoys what he does and it means something. So literally from that, you know, I got a leaflet for Mind in a local area that came from the kids' school, believe it or not. And I thought this is a great place to start. And I became a volunteer, like a mentor there. And all of a sudden a job came available there. And, you know, all that I'd studied for, you know, 13, 14 years in IT as well, it didn't mean anything anymore because I knew that this is my purpose. And I moved my industry and everything, and, you know, changed and, you know, started a new career within mental health services. It's been 2.5 years in there, and I've learned so much about
Amazing.
it. And especially the one main thing is that, look, anybody can go through anything. These are normal people having issues. Yeah. How would we deal with setbacks in our lives? You know, someone loses their job, you know, someone can't pay their mortgage. All of a sudden, a couple of things have happened, right? And their life has spiraled out of control like it did for us. These are normal people that go through these things. And it's really important that we acknowledge that. And look, everything has been built from there in terms of what we try and do online. We try to show that, you know, life is real. We are not perfect. Yeah, we can't kid anybody.
That's why our posts always have a messy house.
Yeah,
that's what we live in. That's what's the truth.
We can't kid other parents and say, look, this is what life is like. It's about being real and not perfect. But the main thing is that it's about showing other people that, hey, you can do what we do. If not, you can do better than what we do. It's about being open and acceptable. And with faith as well, look, we're trying to raise our children in faith. We're showing that, we're documenting that. People that have judgments about that and they're scared that they can't come into these environments, there's no space for them, we're showing them, hey, you can come here as well. You can experience what we experience as well. Don't be fearful of that. Yeah. And it's opening so many doors, and it's breaking down so many barriers around that. It's really and that's how everybody's operating now online. So we've moved that from face to face, we've moved that digital, it's all online. And this is where we're at. I don't know if you want to add something about what you do.
Yeah, I mean, you talk more about mental health, but I talk more about birth and the power, using your faith through birth and kind of mothering and the power of that. And I think that a lot of people have disconnected the two, because obviously our maternity services don't really promote kind of undisturbed births. It's quite clinical. So and actually, like I'm actually practicing at the moment to become a professional doula, which is somebody who supports a mother through her pregnancy, post-pregnancy and birth. So I'm really enjoying it. And Gurpreet has always said to me, the day you feel like you're not being authentic, the day you feel like you're not being yourself, that's the day you need to switch off and that the time's come to an end, because that's not we don't want to be portraying a lifestyle out there that's not real, because that's actually disserving society. It's not serving society. So disserving society.
It has to be, like I said, we are, as you spoke about, like a following and stuff like that. You have to be responsible. You're in a privileged position, but you have to have that responsibility. Everything has to be about purpose. Everything has to be about serving those people. Everything has to be about educating, bringing awareness, and doing these things. And yes, we have a bit of fun along the way. Look, we've got to show that what life is really like. And people enjoy a bit of that, and it's important to be real, like I said. But it's really, someone who you interact with. It's like life is so short, and you don't know how some people change your lives, and you have the power, and it's about making those people believe, building people's confidence, like you said, resilience and everything. But the main thing is, it's like what we all have in us, it's all within us. We just haven't realized it yet. To the point that like I said, going on for something like I've started running marathons now, like, and things like that. I would never have imagined that before. It's all inside you. You're able to do it. You're able to do, and you're talking about birth, giving life, what the body is able to do, and within us, we're just waiting for someone to come and light our candle, literally, and we're we're set. The flame is on, and it's all there within us.
I think the thing that has really struck me through all of our kind of conversation in this video today is that authenticity, and that's what Relationship Hub is about. Actually, it's about being authentic and it's about being real. And this is a platform for people to tell their story, to share their experience, so that people listening, watching can learn from other people's experiences, learn from people's struggles, from their mistakes, from the ups and the downs, and so on and so forth. And certainly what you've described and what you're doing on social media is exactly the kind of premise of Relationship Hub. It's about being authentic and real so that other people can learn. And you've been willing to be vulnerable. And actually, although so much of what's gone on, you would, as you said earlier, you wouldn't wish that on anybody. You as a couple seem to me to be sort of so strong because of what you've gone through, though. Actually, you've grown as a couple together. And central to all of your experiences has been this commitment to one another in marriage, to say, actually, this relationship is at the core of everything we're doing here, and we will persevere, and for Nav, I will keep on supporting Gurpreet, during those difficult times, and I'm not going to give up on those things, even though it feels really difficult and tough. So I just want to say thank you so much for being so open and honest and real, and sharing your story. It's been really inspiring to hear, and I'm absolutely convinced people listening will feel the same as well. If people do want to find you on social media, I know, Gurpreet, as well, you've done a lot of blogging, and you've blogged about your mental health stuff too. So where do people go, just very quickly, because we need to finish, but very quickly, where should people go to find out more about you too?
Sure. We've got our own, obviously, Instagram accounts, which is Sikh Dad and Sikh Mum. We have our own websites, which is SikhDad.com and SikhMum.com. We have our own podcast as well, which is Sikh Parenting, which is spelled SEEK, as in Sikh. And we've also got our own online parenting forum, which is a community. It's a sounding board, which is also called Sikh Parenting, where we have an online membership. So it's kind of evolved into that. The one-to-one conversations we were having with people has now become sort of a one-to-many learning as well. And a community has been created where we're able to do all of these things, and have the support from members as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story on the Relationship Hub. It's been just such a pleasure to hear and to share the story with you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much for listening to this video. Thank you for following Nav and Gurpreet's story in this second part. There are lots of stories, lots of things they've shared and talked about. They've talked about their marriage, they've talked about mental health. And I do encourage you to go and get the help that you might need. If you've got any concerns or if anything resonated with you, please do go and get the help you need from those around you or from professional organisations. Don't let things stay as they are if you're feeling things are difficult. And just to encourage you as well, just to keep investing and taking care of those important relationships in your lives. So thank you so much for listening to the Relationship Hub today. Please do like this video, please do share it with your friends and family, and please do watch for the next Relationship Hub video. Thank you.